Okay, well, I've just gone through 20 minutes of a seminar by myself, recording what I thought was great stuff, and realised I got it on pause, so I'm going to have to start again. I did see, Karen, that you tried the link. I had trouble with the link as well, so I'm not sure what was going on there. And I know it's difficult for the rest of you to get at this particular time, get to the webinar at this particular time, or lots of different times, to be perfectly honest. But that's fine. I'm going to go on anyway and mention some books and articles here that may help you with this strange thing, which is change management. Now, with the change management, we've got really three things going on. So we've got the change itself that needs to be implemented and also sustained. We've got the people that the change is happening to, which could be any stakeholders really, but is normally the employees. And of course, we've got the person that wants the change to happen, which is usually the leader or the manager. So we've got those three things going on, which kind of all meld together and make life a bit difficult. So the first thing is, let's look at the change project itself, and we've got three main models there. We've got the Lewin model, which we're all familiar with, which is about unfreezing the business as usual, doing the change, making it happen, and refreezing, and it's all very kind of there's no kind of awareness of what the feelings of the people that the change is happening to, or indeed, the type of leader that is required to make that happen. Other than they have to be kind of heroic. And then we have sorry, let me just get rid of that a minute. Then we have the ADKAR model, which was theorized by Prosky. Can't remember the date, which is very bad of me, but anyway. So let's bring that one up, and that's it's called ADKAR because of the initials of the different stages that we have to look at. So I think that is, where is that? Let me have a look. I'm not there. Where did I find that one then? ADKAR model. Sorry about this. Let me just pause it a second while I... Right, there it is. I found it, the ADKAR model. So this was, as I said up there, created... Well, let me show it to you first. That'd be helpful, wouldn't it? So there we go. Hopefully you can see that. Right, so again, this puts, I think, a lot of stuff on the leaders or the manager's shoulders, because the first step is, the first ingredient is awareness. So that it's incumbent upon the leader or the manager to make sure that everyone's aware why the change is required. And then they need to create the desire. The second ingredient is the desire. So you need to say to people, this is why we need the change. You need to be part of it. It's going to be good for you, all that kind of stuff that's going on there. So that's an important ingredient. And this is a great failing in a lot of change projects, you need to have the knowledge and communicate the knowledge that you know how the change can be brought about. It's not good enough to stand there and say, we're going to have this change, but quite honestly, I don't know how it's going to happen. Or even at this point, ask for ideas about how it's going to happen. You have to give some idea, or have to be very clear about how the change is going to happen. And then the fourth ingredient is ability. So you need to have the resources to bring about the change in terms of, there might be financial, might be marketing. There's certainly going to be HR or employee resources so that change can actually happen. And then the last ingredient, reinforcement, is really the same as the refreeze bit in the Lewin model, which is about making sure the change is sustainable. So this is, in my view, an improvement on the Lewin model, but still not perfect. And then we have the third model, which I prefer, and I'll bring that one up now, is the Kotter's 8-step model. And really it doesn't need any more explanation than what is on the screen there. But again, this is I'm not sure this is really understanding what the effect on the person that it's on the people that it's being applied to. So, the people that change is affecting. It does go somewhere there. So again, a lot falls on the leader's shoulders, as you would expect. So the leader has got to have the ability to create the urgency. So making people want to understand, or making people understand what the change is, and making them want to be part of it. And then there's got to be champions. So you need people that are going to get the urgency and the enthusiasm and the motivation to make that change happen. And the leader, again, I'm going to use the word manager. I don't like mixing them up, but it could well be a manager because they will lead a team. They need to create a vision. They have to have a vision about why that change is going to happen. And they need to be able to communicate the vision and make sure something happens. So it's no good saying that we're going this way and then not putting any tactics in place for it to happen. So this is the enabling section. And then there's nothing better than quick wins. I know that from my work as a business consultant. If you're with a new client and you can do something straight away that gives them the kind of, if you want, the wow factor that something bigger is going to happen, look for them, because they're great at getting people to work with you. And then the third section is really an expansion on Lewin's refreeze. Build on the change, make sure it sticks in there, bring it back into business as usual, and just don't leave it. Just make sure that you're going back to it, making sure the change doesn't drift back to the old way of doing things. So let's have a look at the leadership bit. What is required of the leader and to make these things happen then. Now, Mintzberg, let me just get rid of that in a second. Mintzberg, who you will be familiar with, because I think he's one of the reading, I'm not sure what the reading was. I think it's about, that's it, Managing Exceptionally, which you would have seen, hopefully. But this is Mintzberg's book, 10 Different Roles of a Successful Manager. It's in his book. The book is called Mintzberg on Management Inside Our Strange World of Organizations. Now, he's talking about managers here, but, managers can be leaders and leaders can be managers. So let's have a look. What he's saying about what the manager's job is there really doesn't say much that I can see about being heroic when it comes to change, or anything about change at all. But a manager does have to, you might not instigate the change, but you just have to lead change. But it's not saying you need to be heroic or that your part of your job is about change. So you don't have to stand on your tank like Colonel Tim Collins and say we're going this way, which would be the planned change that Lewin's going on about. It's quite acceptable and in some ways preferable maybe to look at incremental change. And there is a business in South America which you might be familiar with, which I think is called Semco, where the change is brought about incrementally, and there are groups of employees who know what's required in terms of change the best. There are groups of employees who implement the change themselves, and the leader of the organization, whose name escapes me, takes what is known as the "I'll know it when I see it" approach to change. Now, I quite like that approach because it makes sure change happens, it makes sure it changes incrementally, and really because of that, it makes sure that there's none of this big fanfare and people feel disrupted and they have to go through the Kubler-Ross grief cycle. They may go through the Kubler-Ross cycle, but it ain't going to be so pronounced as it would be with your heroic leader standing up on his lectern or his tank and saying, right, we're off this way. So most change is going to be between those two, isn't it? It's going to be between the planned change, the heroic leader, and the I know it when I see it change, getting the employees who know it best to make sure the change happens. There is an interesting paper by two guys called Dexter and Stace, D-E-X-T-E-R, and Stace, S-T-A-C-E. I will put these in a post to you, by the way, in 1988, which, can I bring that one up? Let me have a look. Let me just switch that off a minute. And let me see if I can find it. Not that one. Let me pause me again. It's just... Right, there it is. Transformational coercive strategies for planned organizational change beyond the OD model. And really that challenges, as you can see there, the concept of planned change, of transformational change by heroic leaders. And it looks at incremental change and participative change. So it looks at that. So that's worth having a look at in the context of this week's session. Now, the third component, we've already looked at the change itself, the type of change that we're going to try and implement, how we should do that, and also not in great detail because it's all about the Kübler-Ross cycle, which is quite a big part of this week's session. But the third thing is the requirements that are sitting on the shoulders of the leader. And there is a paper or a paper by Cindy Wigglesworth in 2014, which you may have come across. I don't think it's part of this course, but I don't think you would have come across. And she argues that in order to bring sustained and transformative change about, you need to have deep intelligence, as she puts it. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a swig of water. And that's made up of 4 nested types of intelligence, which are physical intelligence, cognitive intelligence, emotional intelligence, and she introduces the concept of spiritual intelligence. So the first thing is that you need is the PQ, or physical intelligence, and that's all about your body. Be aware of your body and its movements and using it to skillful use. And to be able to do that and be on top form, you need to look after it. I mean, it's self-evident and something that's been around for ages, but you don't want to be too tired. You don't want to be going into work, having had a session every evening. You want to eat well. You want to be on top form physically, top peak condition. And that's the first thing. Without that, the other 3 intelligence ingredients aren't going to be effective. And then she says you of course need the cognitive intelligence, the IQ. So you need to be intelligent. You need to be able to bring in those concepts that are required in order to understand the change and implement the change. So you need those MBAs, you need the ability to be able to take those kind of things on board. But you also need the ability to consider loads of perspectives simultaneously. So that means being able to look at the perspective of the different stakeholders, which will generally be your employees. Now, the third, without the without emotional intelligence, you're not going to be able to move. Without the cognitive intelligence in place, you are not going to move on to the third ingredient, which is the emotional intelligence. That's all about recognizing your own feelings, perceiving the feelings of others, and maybe even anticipating those feelings, managing your own behavior and emotions, and be able to manage relationships. So without emotional intelligence in the mix, again, if you're going to fly off the handle at something or walk out of rooms, you're never going to get change implemented. And the fourth and very interesting ingredient that Cindy Wigglesworth introduces is spiritual intelligence, which goes beyond emotional intelligence. And this is all about the ability to behave with wisdom and compassion and still remain peaceful, no matter what the situation. So you're still exhibiting. You've seen these kinds of people. I mean, Gandhi's one of them, I guess, for spiritual. This is not about religion. This is about how you behave in the situations. And we've all sat in rooms where chaos has been going on, and somebody's been there that's still being able to come up with the wise words and the wise behaviours, to show compassion to people that are losing it a bit, and appear to be just have that kind of peace. Cindy Wigglesworth, fourth ingredient is this spiritual intelligence. She said if you've got those four intelligences, they are essential for deep change. You've got the deep intelligence and you'll be able to affect deep change in your organisation. Now, of course, there is the cultural intelligence. Now, that's something different, something that I don't think Cindy Wigglesworth touches on. But this is, we've all seen them where somebody, well, both ways, well, I've seen them both ways anyway, where somebody comes into an organisation new into the organisation, and they just sort of don't say much for a while. They take a bit of a backseat, and they're able to understand what's going on. We've also had those people maybe in a meeting, and the meeting started, and somebody walks in 5 minutes late, and they have no feeling of the culture of the meeting that has been sort of started by the people in that meeting. They open their mouth and they start talking, and it's just jarring. It's just doesn't bring anything to that situation at all. So cultural intelligence, as you will have seen in the article that is there, is the outsider's seemingly natural ability to interpret someone's unfamiliar and ambiguous gestures the way that that person's compatriots would. So that's cultural intelligence. There's a great thing, I think, in the article about two Germans who are not too polite about the other people's ideas. And the leader, the manager, is quick to say that's because they're German and how rude and disruptive they were. But of course, had that manager had any cultural intelligence at all, he would have been able to ask himself, about whether their behaviour was because they were German and adapt accordingly, or indeed because they were engineers, or a cross between the two. So I think that is all I wanted to say. I will put these things in a post to you, these different articles. You may have seen them already. There's a good book, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's called Good to Great by Jim Collins, which brings in a lot of this stuff. So that's it. So I will be, if you have any problems, as always, please get hold of me on WhatsApp or any of the normal methods. If it's a private question you want or private chat with me, obviously please use my phone or text me or WhatsApp me privately. Anything else, if you want to share with the others in the group, please use WhatsApp or post it on the forum. I will be organising another webinar hopefully in a couple of weeks, so I'll obviously speak to you or be in touch before then. But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks very much.